Thank you very much, Rob. Rob, good to be with you, and Brendan and Coach. Good to see you again. I know you got a limited schedule this morning, so we won't inundate you with too much. But let me ask you a simple question: how do you think college football 2024 version so far, Urban?
Yeah, I'm blown away. I think one of the greatest things that's ever happened is this playoff. And because we're covering it every week on Big Noon and then our podcast, Triple Option, um, you just do a quick history lesson. And prior to the BCS, it was really just polls. And you sometimes had split national champions, and there was no really systemized way of doing it. But, back then the bowl games were everything. And then now you moved into the 2006, we won it, and then 2008, we were the first team in 2008. We won it, and then 2008, we were the first team in 2008 be removed from the other bowl games. If you remember, oh wait, was that six? Yeah, 2006. Instead of the normal, they went with a BCS bowl game, and that's when we beat Ohio State in Glendale. And then fast forward, they expanded to a college football playoff, which at Ohio State we were the first one, and there were 4 teams. Now there's 12. But I think for everybody to understand that it's much more than 12. There's 25 programs right now that there's hope, and there's belief, and there's team meetings right now. There's practices. There's fan engagement. And the most important people are players. That's hundreds and hundreds of college football players that are still very engaged with the hope of competing in the playoffs. So I think it's fantastic. I think you're going to see something though that you got some blue bloods in there that have 2 losses, and if they lose their third one, and we spoke about this on the triple option, the panic will get set in a little bit because that's when you'll probably see sit out, transfer. That's when the negativity, or that's when the obstacles will start. But right now, I can't imagine it being any better.
I want to ask you, let's go back to 2006 and 8, and then jump forward now, how much the game has changed. And if you had to go into coaching today, what are the 3 things that you would do? And I think I have an idea, but tell me what a coach today has to do that a coach didn't have to do in 2008.
Yeah, the first thing is assemble a staff. I've always, when I speak to people, the first thing is you develop and implement a culture. How do you do that? The most undervalued people in an organization is that group of assistant coaches. And now that I'm removed from it, and I knew it as it was happening, when I lost a Charlie Strong, a Dan Mullen, Greg Madison, Dazio, my strongest coaches, that was like losing to Percy Harvin.
Yeah.
I mean, and maybe even longer because of the impact. You lose a player for a year, but you lose a coach, man, you're living with it. And so that was the number one thing. And then the second one is talent acquisition, and that's probably, it used to be in 2005, I get hired in Florida, and the system was you would recruit in May, you'd get your list together, you'd start recruiting in September, and then you would have a couple visits in December, then a couple visits in January, and that's it. That's blown completely away. Now it's 24/7, it's 365, and now there's cash involved. So it's and the team. I think you're going to start to see general managers show up in organizations. You're going to see salary cap experts being hired in collegiate situations. I think that's the next phase.
Yeah, Buddy Martin, along with Rob Browne and Brendan Martin with Urban this morning, on what we used to call the best Fridays in football, and still fun. We've always been able to have fun celebrating what was good about college football, Urban. You and I have that common bond. Now, here we are at this point in time. We're down to the nub. We're in November of 2024. These teams are ebbing and flowing. Now, all of a sudden, Ohio State, that you've been promoting big time, just hammers Penn State. They're looking like they're in good shape. But you also believe in physicality. This time of year, with the depth on the roster and the remaining games they have, and these unbelievable matchups every week, especially in the SEC. You get into the demolition derby. Who could be left standing? Who is going to be able to, what coaches are in jeopardy? It's just everything is a play here, Urban, isn't it?
It is, and I just wish there was a more effective way to value the schedule strength. And you're going to see some teams that are possibly make the playoff that didn't play a ranked team, and it's not their fault. I mean, I'm not blaming, but a 3-loss SEC team, what would happen on that field if they played one of these teams that didn't? I think most people know the answer. I mean, it'd probably be a win. And you just watch the NFL draft, and that'll tell you, who's got the better rosters. So you certainly don't want to take away with some of the incredible storylines from SMU to, I mean, my gosh, we got Coach Prime this week at Texas Tech, and then you got Indiana, you got Navy, Army, you got some incredible storylines right now. And I'm telling you, the college football world, other than we need some guardrails. It's really good. And by the way, I think the coaching is really good. I watch all the film now, and I think the coaching is there's some really well-coached teams out there.
You're a coaching guy. You don't like to criticize coaches. You said that a number of times, but we have unique situations. Billy Napier's got one. All of a sudden, he was dead man walking. All of a sudden, now he got a reprieve. He got a vote of confidence. He's going to be the coach next year at Florida. Look, he had a $26 million buyout. If they come back and he takes half of that and buys players in the NIL, how does that change things? I see Jimmy Sexton's fingerprints all over that, Jimmy Sexton. And so people are wondering, is it the right choice, the bad choice? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I saw it. And of course I got, about 100 text messages from friends and Gators. And I will say this about Coach Napier and what he's done. I thought they were done. I thought, you saw what's happening in Tallahassee. It's not uncommon to see a team once it starts to, but there must be a decent culture. I don't know. I'm not there, obviously, at Florida because they're playing. They had a third string quarterback and squared up with Georgia. And, I just make sure that Florida doesn't accept,
mediocrity
losses. You just can't. But I get it. I think Strickland showed his loyalty. I'm very hopeful that loyalty pays off because I'm a coach's coach, and I know what they do. I know how hard they work, and I think there's a lot of reality about what I read about the NIL. The 80% of his NIL is in young players. Now it would be awful if some of those guys leave, and then here, But that's the management that Scott Strickland has to do. And my initial reaction is I'm really happy for that coach, so he's getting a little more time. I'm also a Gator fan, and I just at the end of the day, you got to be on the left-hand side of that column when you walk off the field and go sing the "We Are the Boys" or go sing the "Orange and Blue" fight song.
Yeah, so you had to catch yourself there.
I first got to Florida. I first got to Florida, buddy.
I know
that everybody told me "We Are the Boys" from Old Florida is a fight song. I went to every fraternity, every sorority, every student group, and I had handout. John Clark we had a big stack in my car, and he'd pick me up after practice or pick me up after whatever. And I said, "What do we got tonight?" And he says, "We got Sigma Chi, Kappa, all these." I'd look at it, I'd be so tired. And he'd have a cup of coffee for me, and we'd go for the next 3-4 hours every night, buddy, in spring. And we'd go, I'd go talk to him about needing him at the stadium, and we're going to come over to you and sing the alma mater and the fight, and then we're going to sing the fight song together. And then they didn't know the fight song. So I handed out I handed out 100 sheets of paper, and we'd sing "We Are the Boys from Old Florida." And it really became a great tradition there.
Yeah, of course. And then the great line from the alma mater is only one that people remember: "Orange and Blue Victorious," right?
Orange and Blue.
I'll let these guys jump in with a quick question, Coach, if you don't mind, in a couple minutes we got. So, Rob Browne, go ahead. You got a question for Coach Meyer?
Coach, I just want to say I have a ton of respect for what you've always been as a coach. I love the way you coach because you and I are the same age. That's what I was brought up with. I hate it when I hear people say you can't coach tough. I was talking to a friend of mine that's coached for a long time last week. I hate to hear that. And I think kids crave tough coaching, tough love, whatever you want to call it. If you had an opportunity, if hypothetically, what other than Florida in the SEC you think is the best opportunity to have great success in the next 5 years?
Well, that's a great question. You got your traditionals in the East and West that I grew up in. You just back down memory lane. You got Georgia, Florida, Tennessee. Should always have great teams. They got everything you need. They got budgets, great college towns, good academics, and then most importantly, access to players. And then you got the other side, which is you got Alabama, Auburn, LSU, and then you started adding the Texas A&M. Now you got Texas, Oklahoma. So that's a tough question. I haven't given it much thought. To me, it's got to be alignment with an athlete. I was very fortunate. I had arguably one of the greatest athletic directors to ever be an AD in Jeremy Foley. And that's the thing that sold me, is that we were going to be perfectly aligned, which we were. And so misalignment at any level is terrible. And I'm not going to call out programs, but I've heard from colleagues, I've heard from other people that some programs are going to always struggle because there's alignment issues from the top down. There's other programs that do very well. It's because there's perfect alignment. And you can read behind the lines, you can look in the records. At the end of the day, when a team wins, it's not because of a great coach, it's not because of great players. Those are all very important. It's because of alignment. And that would be the first thing that you have to get, especially nowadays.
And then there's Vanderbilt, Coach.
Now that's I should have mentioned Vanderbilt because I put them like Indiana. I love watching them. It's I said this on Big Nooner, I think, on the podcast, is that I got to watch a lot of film because it's part of my job now, and plus I enjoy it. There's sometimes I can't watch it. I'm watching it because I have to, and then I just, after 7 minutes, I turn it off and say, this is terrible. This is lack of fundamentals, lack of effort. And then you flip on these other teams like Vanderbilt. That coaching staff, first of all, that Vanderbilt is a hell of a football team. They have good players that are playing great. That's a credit to that coaching staff.
Coach, I always said that when the smart kids get good a little bit, watch out because they're going to be good. So I'm a Commodore fan right now if I'm not a Gator fan because I love the underdog. So thanks for joining us today, Coach. Coach, one question. Zach, one of our viewers, said, Buddy or Brendan, please ask Urban if Kiffin would kill it at Florida, or would you think Lane Kiffin would be a good fit? I'm asking for one of our viewers here, so I thought I'd throw it out there.
Funny story about Lane Kiffin. He gets hired at Tennessee, and we win the national title. I'm with my father. He's not doing well. He had cancer, and I was in the ICU unit up in Cincinnati, Ohio. We just won the title, and I finally get a break, and I'm up there with him. And this right after recruiting, and he comes out and says that we cheated, and I cheated by calling a player on a visit. And I mean, called me a cheater. And obviously my dad's got oxygen on him. He looks at me like what? And I was like, I lost my mind. And so that started a little bit of a war. And then Lane apologized. Coach Kiffin and I are friends now. People laugh when I tell them that. I think he's great. I think he's great for the game. Some of the stuff, I enjoy watching, reading. Excellent play caller, excellent offensive coach. But what he's got to do now is finish. And that's kind of been, he gets a good run, and then I think they got 2 losses now. So your question, obviously, I'm beating around the bush. I'm not going to answer that.
Okay, fair enough. I totally get it. But buddy, hold on. This is my question. If you had to add one position, you talked about how the coaching's changing. If you were coaching right now, you had to add one position in the top 5 tier of the upper leadership that wasn't there. What kind of position would you add as a coach? Coaching position, excuse me.
I'm not sure the question.
Well, like we talked about how we're going to have different type of coaches, people, general managers. We're going to have people who are doing salary cap things. If you had to add a coaching position that would be advantageous in the NIL in today's game, what coaching position do you think is missing from a managerial position, like a front of house person, or is it what position do you think you would add in that coaching staff?
Yeah, we were the first ones to add a sports performance
Yeah.
team. I wasn't able to do it at Florida. I mean, think about that back with the budgetary restrictions and all that, but we added a full-time physical therapist just for football. It used to be a physical therapist for everybody. You had a sports psychologist, one, for the entire team, and only people with like positive drug tests got to see the person. We were the first ones at Ohio State to hire one. Now there's more than one. So I think in the football world, I think the next step is a GM that can take that completely off the plate of the head coach. And it's going to be, because I've seen it, the salary cap. It's going to be, the budgetary, because there's got to be some fiscal responsibility. And head coaches are not built like that. So they're going to have to hire people that are.
Urban, let's go off of this story. I love it. This tells you how temporary fame is and fleeting. And in 2006, when you won the national championship, when everybody was gone, and you and Bud, and I forget who else were sitting back in the locker room, taking 2 seconds to gloat, and then the reality hits you of what you had faced. Talk about that night when you won the national championship. Boy, you're going to the moon, and then what happened?
Yeah, I remember we dancing and celebrating, and everybody's playing that music, and then we talked to the President of the United States, George Bush, I believe it was at the time, and then I went back and I said, go grab my 2 mentors, Earl Bruce and my father. And I remember sitting there, I told someone it felt like all the pressure was gone. And I looked at them both, and I said, the most amazing thing is for the rest of my life, you get to do this for fun. We did it. I'm going to have fun doing this, so no more pressure. And Mac Brown and I would laugh. We still laugh about that. That may be arguably one of the most ignorant and untrue statements ever made, because every step you take, and every breath you take, every step you take, it's others look at you that way, but also internally, are we doing everything we can to win a national title? And of course, perfection is fleeting. It's impossible, but you chase it, and that's what happens, and it beats you to death.
And then you won one 2 years later. Hey, Coach, now look, here we go. We're getting down to the end of it, and there's going to be some slobber knocking going on. You love a physical team. You think it's important. You mentioned it again the other day. Physicality. When you get down to the short hairs, as they say, in November, who are those tough teams? I know you think Ohio State's one.
Yeah, I made the comment. It's reality that who punches the hardest at the line of scrimmage will win. It's not that complicated. I mean, it's hard to get that way, and it's recruiting, development, and you got to have Mickey Marattis. You got to have strong line coaches on both sides of the ball, and you got to have a head coach that believes in toughness wins. And I witnessed a 5-minute and 13-yard drive, a 5-minute and 13-second drive against Penn State from the 1-yard line in front of 110,000 people against a good team. And they said, we're running the ball, and they couldn't stop them. That's when I knew I had a special team, is when we had that kind of physicality. And the 08 with the Pounceys and that defensive line, that was a nasty physical team. I would put, Ohio State up to that point, I didn't really see it. But once you see it, it's there. So I would put them right near the top. I would put Georgia because of their defense. I have no idea what's going on with those turnovers. I don't know if I've ever seen anything like that. The 9 turnovers in 2 games and they're still winning. So that they get a better team, they'll lose. I know Texas, they beat, I think Carson Beck had 3 picks and they beat Texas. So I think Oregon, Ohio State, and Georgia are the 3 big dogs right now. And I think they're the most physical.
Coach Urban Meyer, Big Ten kickoff. You got Coach Prime this weekend. Going to be a fun time. We'll be watching. We appreciate your time and love your work on TV. Only thing I'd like better is to see you back on the sideline, but no, I can't say that.
Please, I beg you every time, Coach. It's my favorite interview of all time. I beg you. Come back, Coach. I love you. Come back to Florida. For you. Please come back and be a Gator.
Yeah. Where were y'all back his first year when he walked into the restaurants and games on? They were booing him. Where were you guys then, right?
I was there covering him and celebrating him because I knew he was going to be great.
Thanks,
Have a great day, guys.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Coach.